Hello, I'm Jason Stepp with Stepp Manufacturing, and today we're going to be doing the operational training on a Stepp Ojk125 125 gallon crack sealer. This unit's designed to melt and applicate rubberized crack sealing materials to seal our cracks in the roads. I always kind of like to start at the front of the machine, kind of work our way back, so I'm going to start here in the front. This unit's equipped with a 2 5/16 ball hitch. You can also get them with a 3-inch pintle ring. There's a screw jack on the other side here. There's also an electric breakaway over here. That's intended so that if the trailer becomes disconnected, that it'll lock the brakes up on the trailer for whatever reason. This particular unit has a 7 RV plug. We do have some other options for that also, 6 and also 4 depending on what your truck's equipped with. This unit's all diesel fired, so it has a diesel burner and a diesel engine. So there's a 25 gallon diesel fuel tank on here with the fuel gauge. Excuse me. The power plant on this is a Kubota Z602 engine, 2-cylinder liquid cooled engine. Our engine does a couple things for us. It actually supplies the hydraulic motor or power for the hydraulic motor to run the mixer and or the pump. It also has a 12-volt alternator on it, which keeps the battery charged to run the burner and the control package on here. And then it has a separate 24-volt alternator on the front of the unit that's designed to heat our hose, because the hose and the wand and the overhead boom is all 24-volt heated. So that has its own alternator to supply power to that. The deep sea engine control, that's your digital engine management system. So it does a couple things for engine. Obviously it starts it. It's part of our, we have a glow plug and a start button. So before you start it, you push and hold the yellow button in for 30 to 60 seconds. And then when you're ready to start it, you press the green button and that hits your starter. It also shuts the engine off in the case of a overheat situation, if it's low on antifreeze or the radiator's plugged or some reason that the engine overheats. It's going to shut that down before it does damage to the engine. It'll also shut the engine down in the event of a low oil pressure. So if you are low on oil or out of oil, it'll shut that engine down before it wrecks that engine. Also includes your voltmeter and your hour meter on here, and then there's also some warning lights. So if you're overheated, it'll show the warning light will be lit up. That shows you that the unit's overheated. There's a fuel filter located right down here. You've got one for your engine and one for your burner. They're both the same filter. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just a felt filter in there. I'll show you some more stuff on the engine here in just a little bit. But your diesel burner is right behind here. That's what's located right here. It's a Beckett forced air diesel burner. That burner fires into the bottom of the unit to heat up our oil jacket. Our oil jacket then heats up our material, our rubberized crack sealing materials. The rubberized crack sealing materials require a couple of things. Number one is they require smooth, even heating. Number two, they require constant agitation. So this unit's also equipped with a paint mixer style agitator in the inside, or a washing machine agitator, excuse me, to continually mix that material once it comes up to temperature. But our burner fires in the bottom of that, wraps up around the sides, and then comes out through the top exhaust stack here. So you'll be able to see the heat come out of there when you're firing. And we'll fire it up here in just a few minutes so you can see that. The unit's equipped with a safety loading chute. So we would open our door, set our block on top of the loading chute, and then close the door with the block on it. The reason we do that is because that'll prevent the material from splashing back on the operator if we're closing that door. If the material splashes, it splashes against the door. When you open the top door, the agitator also shuts off. That's part of the control package on the unit. You also have a recirculating flange to stick your wand in, and I'll show you how that works here in just a few minutes also. The pumping package on this is a very unique system. There's very few companies that build one like this. We submerge our product pump down inside the kettle. So when our material's hot, our product's hot. And when we're ready, we start to pump our material up and over and through the boom and down the heated hose and down into the heated wand. So we are heated right from the end of this valve all the way to the valve on the top of the kettle. That has its own heating system. It does take anywhere from 20 to 30, maybe even 40 minutes if it's cold outside to get that hose thawed back out. The rubberized crack sealants clean. You can't clean them with a solvent, so you have to remelt them. That's the magic with this, is we're remelting it. But by submerging that pump, when our product's ready, our pump's ready to pump, we start to purge it through the hose and wand. The wand's very unique. It's got a handful of cool features on it. It has a trigger, start and stop, so we're actually hydraulically starting and stopping the product pump. So every time I pull the trigger, it starts the pump, it pushes the material. It's really a true on-demand system. So with this system, we're able to only pressurize the hose when we're applicating material. So if for some reason the operator lets go of the wand, the flow of the sealant immediately stops, because it stops the pump. We're no longer pressurizing that hose and wand system. It also has a very neat feature that no one in the industry has, is we can control the speed or the flow of the material coming out of the end of the wand right from the wand. So there's a rheostat right here on the wand. That's called the exact flow option. So as we're filling cracks, we can pull the trigger and I can control the speed with my thumb from that rheostat on the back of the wand. Super cool. Once you fire it up and you start to use it, you'll see how handy that is. Where that really comes into play is when we're doing random cracks, which most cracks are, you know, they're never the same width, the whole width of the road. So if we get it set and we're filling some fairly fine cracks and we get over to the edge and that crack starts to open up, we can actually speed up the pump and speed up the flow coming out the end of the wand, right from the wand. The wand's also equipped with a manual shutoff, primarily for use during storage or from going from one spot to another, or if you have an area where we're doing new concrete work where we want to keep it very clean and tidy, you can shut that off and prevent any dripping out of the wand. Normal operation though is you're going to push this to the forward position and leave it in that forward position while you're crack sealing until you're done to move to the next part of the job. The unit's equipped with electric brakes. You can also get them with hydraulic brakes. This particular unit has electric brakes, which is nice. It's a nice towing little unit. It's got a hydraulic tank here. Your hydraulic tank, we do recommend that you change the fluid every 200 hours. It's just a standard all-weather 32 weight hydraulic oil, nothing special or fancy there. I'm going to reposition the camera so we can go over the controls here, and then we'll fire it up and show you how it operates. Alright, so we're going to go over the back end of the machine and the controls and what's going on back here. It's a very simple machine to operate. We've got a very cool control system. We actually call it an AKC, or Advanced Kettle Control, to run our system. We're the only ones in the market that run this CAN bus PLC controller. It's designed and programmed to be a crack sealer, which no one else does that. Everyone else kind of puts different components together to kind of make it do what they want it to do, but we're able to program everything we want into there. But I do want to just go over a few things in the back. The unit's equipped with electric overnight heat, so we plug that in. That's going to keep us, if we're using it today and we go to plug it in tonight, tomorrow morning, it's only going to take us half the time to heat it up. It'll get the product up to about 150, maybe even 200 degrees overnight by plugging it in. We always tell the customers to, you know, if they're using their kettle every day, to bring that in half to 3/4 full, plug it in. Tomorrow morning, you've probably got a half an hour to get started up versus an hour or hour and a half, depending on how cold it is outside, or depending on the sealant that you're using also. But what's super nice about that electric heat is even if we haven't used this unit for a few months, we can plug it in and it's going to get us halfway there. So I highly recommend that you use the electric overnight heat. You can really, the one thing I will caution you is don't plug it in and leave it plugged in. Plug it in for 1, maybe 2 nights at the most. Because the sealant, as you heat it up and reheat it and heat it up and reheat it without adding new sealant to it, it does start to break down. So you start to separate the material. So you could do that same thing with the electric heat, but it just takes longer periods of time. So I always tell guys, plug it in the night before you're going to use it, or plug it in on Friday night before you go home for the weekend, so that Monday morning it's ready, warm to go. Halfway there, ready to go for you Monday morning. But if you're not going to use the kettle on Monday morning, make sure that you unplug it, just because it'll make your material last longer. We do recommend that during the course of the day when you're sealing with the trailer, that you're constantly adding material. You know, it melts way faster if we're always adding material, because if you fill it up, heat it up, we go out and start to crack seal with it, you can definitely pump way faster than you can melt. So if we keep that kettle full and hot and we're constantly adding blocks to it, it just helps keep up faster so you can get more work done with it. You've got your main drain valve here. This is just for draining, or if you got a small project and you're going to use a pour pot, you have the ability to do that. The two pipes here are actually your temperature probes. The bottom one is your temperature probe, and you'll see when we turn the engine on and light the controls up, the bottom one is your oil temperature, your top one is your material temperature. So that slides down inside that oil jacket. This one slides actually into the material tank itself, so it senses the temperature for both. So we do monitor the temperature for both the heat transfer oil and the product. Your heat transfer oil, you want 25 to 50 degrees hotter at a minimum. No hotter than 550 degrees, actually 600 degrees now with the new expansion tank, but I usually tell guys to run 5 to 550. That's usually plenty of heat to get things going and keep things going. If it's really cold out, like we're in Minnesota, and it's, you know, if you're trying to seal in, you know, 15 or 20 degree weather, you might need to bump that up a little bit more to get things going. But usually you're going to set your product temperature, you're going to set your material temperature, you know, 50 degrees, 100 degrees hotter. So most of the sealant goes down at about 400. So you can run that oil up to 550 very comfortably. 600 is your max temperature. Over 600 you could start to get into flashing, you know, temperatures where the oil in the tank can auto ignite. So I always tell guys 600 under, you're good. 5 to 550 is where you're going to run it most of the time. Your hose temperature, again, you're going to run that at the temperature of your material, and once we fire this up, you'll see how that works. It's pretty slick, it's pretty simple. But inside the control box, I got a couple things going on. We've got our main power switch, which just turns the main power on to the control box. Then we've got a set of latching switches down below. So your burner on and off, your pump forward and reverse. You do have reverse also. Your agitator forward and reverse. This one has a loader option on it. This particular unit does not have that option, but if you had the conveyor on the front, that would turn your loader on and off, and then a strobe light, excuse me, if the unit's equipped with it. Now you'll notice up on top we do have a yellow warning light, but that's actually not a strobe light, it's actually an indication light. So anytime that light's blinking, it'll tell us on the screen that there's something wrong, or the door is open, or a temperature probe has failed, or we're not up to temperature. The other really cool thing about this programmable PLC that we have is we're able to program some intelligence into it. So on this particular unit, we don't allow any of the hydraulics to function until our product's up to a minimum temperature. We factory preset them at 275 degrees. So if I tried to turn the agitator on right now, that light would start to blink and it would tell me burner interlock, because we're not up to temperature yet. Same thing if I tried to turn the pump on, it would say burner interlock because it's not ready. If I open the top door, you know, if I open the top loading chute and the agitator shut off because the door was open, the light will start to blink and it'll tell me that the door is open. So that will give you an indication. If that light's blinking, it means it needs operator attention. There's something that the operator hasn't done right, or needs to change, or needs to wait longer. So it'll tell you that. It also has your wand heat on and off, your pump reverse, and your agitator reverse. The other two bottom switches are just for options. You know, if you ever wanted to put some work lights or strobe lights or anything like that. You also have a rheostat speed control in the control box to control the speed of the pump. Now once we start to use the wand itself, we're going to flip this switch from control box into pump speed, and now that activates the rheostat on the wand itself. So it's very slick, it works really good. So basically what you're doing is choosing between the pump or the wand control speed when you use that switch. A couple other things while I'm back here is we have what we call a WPC valve, a wand pressure control valve. Years ago this was used a lot more than it is now. Now we're basically using it in recirculate, which is suck out of the tank, up, and then right back into tank. And I like to recirculate when I first get things going in the morning, just to make sure my pump's turning. This is your pump shaft here and the chain coupler for your pump. so you'll be able to see that spinning. When I'm ready to start pumping it through the hose and wand, I'm going to push this valve. Now it's cold because it's got cold tar in it, but you're going to start to slowly turn that valve down into wand, which is going to send the flow up the boom and down the wand into the shoe. But you got to have everything heated up, and we haven't done that yet on this kettle. So I always talk a little bit about that WPC valve. At the end of the night, we're going to move this valve from wand back up into recirculate, and then I'm going to put my pump in reverse. Now I usually reverse my pump for about 1 to 2 minutes, and what we're doing there is we're evacuating all the material out of the plumbing. We're actually leaving it in the boom, so we're cutting it off right here, and all I'm doing is just clearing this small portion of plumbing and the actual product pump itself. So we want to make sure that we get that product out of that, just because tomorrow morning it's just a lot easier to heat up. If for some reason that someone does not, you come in tomorrow morning and this is still in the wand position, that plumbing is going to be full of cold material. You're going to have to take a small hand torch and heat up that plumbing if someone forgets to do that. If you set it like this and reverse the pump, you'll never ever have a problem with that plumbing being plugged. But you got to make sure you reverse that. On the side of the control box is a nice sticker with your startup and your shutdown procedures. If you follow that startup and shutdown line by line, you won't have any problems with this. The last little thing I'm going to tell you here before I fire up the kettle and show you how the controls work is we've got our expansion tank. So this our oil, as it heats, it expands up into this expansion tank and then starts to cool off and back down. If for some reason you overheat or you overfill that oil jacket, it's going to come all the way up into the tank, expand in, and then there is an overflow pipe in the case of emergency. On the top here, there is a dipstick. If you spin that off, you'll see some stamp marks on the dipstick. All right, so I'm going to show you some stuff on the engine, then we're going to start the engine up. So it does come with a cabinet key, so you can open up your engine cabinet to check oil, change filters. Your dipsticks here, you've got a fuel filter here. There is a small fuel pump and a fuel filter there. The 24-volt alternator's down inside there. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that sits down there. You've got your radiator and your fan, your fill for your radiators here. You do have a fill or a little cap here you can spin to get down in for your fill on your engine here. It's a nice compact little engine, very clean, starts good, runs good. I'm going to close this up, then I'll show you how to start it while we're up here. So the key does nothing more than powers the system up. We're going to push and hold the yellow button for 30 to 60 seconds. That's what heats up our glow plugs. And you'll see it's got your hour meter on there. Once we've done that, we push the green button. The engine will start, and now we've got power to the system. All right, so now we're going to go through the operations of the control box. We're going to first start with the power switch. That'll light the control box up. You'll see in the top left corner is our oil temperature, and our top right corner is our product temperature. Our bottom left corner is the wand temperature, and then the bottom right is our pump settings or our optional autoloader settings. So right now our oil is actually reading 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and our set point is at 526. Our product's at 32, and our set point is at 454. If I want to change my oil set point, I'm going to come down here and press oil temp. You'll see that lights that little oil temp green square up. Then I'm just going to put the up and down arrow to change my set point. So if you watch that set point temperature, that'll go up and down as I move the button up and down. So our oil, you usually want to run about 50, 75, maybe even 100 degrees hotter. Max temp of 600, but we usually recommend you run it at about 525 to 550. Our product temperature is set at whatever our material supplier states. If you look at the top of the box of material, it'll show you what temperature it should be at. Most of that product is about 400, so I'm going to turn this down to about 400. So all I did was, again, push this button to light up the green. I'm going to set that down to 400. If you press and hold, it does go quickly. Most most of your sealants are between 390 and 400 degrees is where they want to applicate them. Our product, or our oil, I'm going to set that at 525. Okay, so now I want to turn my burner on. So down here, you'll see all my switches are red because all my hydraulic functions are, all my functions are off. So when I push the burner on and off, you'll see the light turns green, and you'll also notice that a little flame symbol comes up on the corner. The flame symbol indicates that our call for heat light, our call for heat is on. So our thermostat is telling the burner that we need to fire. So when that little light's on, the burner should be firing, and you should be able to look out of the stack and see the heat rising out of the stack. Now I'm going to come down and set my wand temperature. This does have a burner interlock in it, what we call a burner interlock, so that none of the hydraulic functions will come on until our product has hit its minimum set point. And the factory minimum set point is at 275. So we need to get our wand up to 275, we need to get our product up to 275 before any of our hydraulic functions will work. I'm going to push the pump on, so you'll notice the low burner or low temp interlock comes on. The top yellow amber light starts to flash too. So anytime the amber light's on, it's telling you that there's something going on with the controls, and it'll tell you right on the screen. I'm going to turn the pump off. Obviously the kettle's too cold to get the pump to come on. But now I'm going to set my wand temperature. So I want my wand and my hose to be at least 400 degrees. I'm going to set that right at 400, set a little high. I want that to be at the same temperature as my product, no less than 375, but usually around 4, maybe even 410 to get that hose warmed up. Now we're using that 24-volt heater to heat that hose up, so we need to give it some time. It usually takes about a half an hour, maybe even 45 minutes, depending on the outside temperature. Like on a cold day today, you might need 45 minutes to get that hose up. So now I want to turn my wand on. So I'm going to push. You'll hear the engine comes under a load. And you'll also notice that the little fire symbol's on in the corner of the wand. That means that our wand is on and our thermostat, our controller, is calling for heat. Once we get up to that 400 degrees, that little flame symbol is going to go off because it no longer is calling for heat. I'm going to go over a couple other things in the control box. You have your pump forward, your pump reverse, your agitator forward and reverse. The agitator does not care what direction it's in. I'll show you when I turn it on. You'll notice the green light comes on, and my low temp interlock also comes on. This also has a switch for the loader. This particular unit doesn't have the optional auto loader on it. You will see, you know, when I'm in loader, it's actually an auto or manual, but again, this unit does not have that. And then if it was equipped with a strobe light, it'd be wired in here also. The last thing I'm going to show you is there is a ramp indicator to show us the speed of our pump. So this is just a reference for you. You'll see that that goes up as I turn the pump speed up. Now we can't get the pump going until the kettle's hot, obviously. We've got to wait for that. And we'll show you that here in a little bit on the video. Now the last switch I'm going to talk about is this wand control box. So right now I'm in the pump speed control in the control box. When I'm first getting things going in the morning, I'm going to be in the control box. When I go to start using the wand, I'm going to flip this up, and this is going to no longer, it's going to render this useless, but it's going to turn the rheostat on the back of the wand on so that you can change the speed of the pump from the wand. I am going to show you there is some user interface stuff here. If you press the OK button, it gets you into a user settings. We can have gallons or liters, degrees or Fahrenheit or Celsius. So if I want to go down and change this to Celsius, I just scroll down. I press the metric button. That puts it in metric. If I hit the escape button, you'll see now the temperatures are in Celsius. Our setting points and our reading. So top temperature is what we're reading, bottom is what we're set at. If I go back in here, I press English, I'm back to liters, or gallons in Fahrenheit. This doesn't have a block counter because that's part of the auto loader in it. There are some product interlock temp features here. We highly recommend, and I'm going to show you how to get, so when we get down into here, I can't change any of these. We've got our product temp, our wand temp, our pump hours, and our blocks, pounds per block and pulses per gallon. Pounds per block and pulses per gallon is for the autoloader option only. That's what we would change if we were using the autoloader in a true autoloading setting, which we don't. Again, this unit doesn't have that. We would change our weight depending on which manufacturer you're buying it from. But if I want to go in here and change my product interlock, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to push and hold the 3 middle buttons for about 10 to 15 seconds. So this gets me into a factory setting, and I'm going to change these because they were not right. My pump interlock should be at a minimum of 275. My wand interlock also at 275. Again, I'm not. If I put a new pump in, I would hit pump reset here. And again, I was using this, holding this button, and this button, those top 3 middle buttons, to get into this setting. I highly recommend that you don't ever get in there. So now our product interlocks are at 275 and our wand is at 275. If you lower that, you will wreck your pumps prematurely. You will run, you will burn out your hydraulic motors prematurely. We recommend that it's a minimum of 275 degrees. We could also set that up higher because you shouldn't be applying or trying to apply product at less than, you know, the manufacturer's recommended temperatures, which is usually 390 to 400. So once I get back to this screen, I want to exit out. I just hit escape. That's that. We're back to our standard screen. Now this screen will stay on here if I turn my power. I'm going to shut my things off. I'm going to turn my power off, turn it back on. You'll see that my presets are still preset to the last setting I put them on. Unless the battery is disconnected for a long period of time, it'll remind itself what those presets are. The only hydraulic function that'll work, you'll see if I'm trying to run the pump or the agitator, even in reverse it won't work. You can run the pump in reverse. So in the case of an emergency, you had to, reverse the plumbing, and for some reason, you drag a hole in the hose and the hose stops working. You need to reverse the pump and we're not up to temperature. You can press and hold that to try to get that pump to reverse. Obviously, it's too cold to do that. You'll notice here, just in the short time, our oils come up to temperature pretty quick. With the burner on it again, I turn that on, the flame comes on. We're gonna let this thing heat up and we're gonna do some more testing. I want to show you the light here, the warning light. Anytime that is flashing, it'll show you on the screen what the problem is. So here it says our low temperature interlock. Now if I turn those off, that goes off, my light goes off. So we're going to let this thing heat up and we'll come back to you here in just a little bit. All right, now you'll see we've got everything's up to temperature. We're over our set point on our wand. I want to start pumping through the pump. So when everything's up to temperature, you can see our product's up to 424. Our wand's at just under 300 degrees. It'll keep popping up here. I'd shut it off for a little bit while the kettle was warming up. But I want to start to get things to turn. So I'm going to put my pump in forward. To get my pump to turn, I have to pull the trigger and set the trigger lock. There's a trigger lock on the bottom of the trigger. Now you'll notice that the pump is turning. You can start to feel that plumbing. That plumbing there is going to get hot because it's going to circulate up, come down, right back into the kettle. Now once I'm ready to start operating it from the wand now, I want to start to push the material through the boom and wand. So I'm going to switch my speed control here. As you can see, the pump turns up and down as I turn that. I'm going to switch that over to the wand. So I'm going to push that over in the wand position. Now this doesn't do anything. I've got to use the one on the back of the wand to change the speed. Now, this is the one safety part here. I always make sure I tell everyone to caution when we first start to purge that product through the wand. We've got our pump turning slow. I'm going to start to turn my valve over, and it'll start to drip and drizzle out of the end of the wand. You want to take extreme caution. Make sure that the handle is forward or open. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure. And I'm going to grab the camera here so you can see what I'm seeing inside. See how it's just drizzling? Now I'm going to put my valve over here. I'm going to turn this down into the wand position. You see how much more flow we have? All right, so we got good flow established. When you first turn that on, it's going to be very thick and very gooey. You want to get a good flow. Make sure that your temperature comes up in your control box, you know, for your product. So now I'm going to reposition this camera so you can see me fill the crack. So this is the crack we're going to fill. It's actually on the edge of a bridge. I'm going to just position this so you guys can kind of see. All right, so I'm going to unhang the wand. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I unclick the trigger, because if I pull that out, that pump is pumping. So I'm going to pull the trigger, which unlocks it. I'm going to pull that handle back, which shuts the valve off, which you don't have to, but it'll make a mess on your kettle if you don't. And I'll be very careful, because make sure there's no one standing directly next to you. I'm going to pull that wand out, and you'll see that you'll get a little drip out of it. So now that I'm ready to fill, I'm going to push my valve forward, and I'm just going to get that shoe full. Now if I want to speed it up, see how that crack is, it's very deep crack, so I'm going to double fill it, and or I could even turn my speed of my pump up. But we want to just keep that shoe nice and full, fill that crack up. Some guys will double fill them. As long as you're sealing the water out, that's what we ultimately want to do. The wand works the best if you pull it. This is a deep crack. We're going to definitely put some sealant in there. But you can use your shoe as kind of like a squeegee. You don't want too much material on the top of the crack. You want most of it to go down inside there. Because anything that's on top is just waste, and the material's expensive, so we don't want to waste that. So you can see that material's already starting to get set up. It's getting thick. So the magic of that sealant is it sets up very, very quickly. So now I'm going to shut that off so it doesn't drizzle anymore, especially for the transport position. So now you'll see we'll have to back the truck up to get this other side of this crack, and we'll do that right now. All right, we're going to fill the rest of that crack. If you get a lot of grass and dirt in your crack, that won't stick as well. But as you can see, when you get that good and hot, it really flows nice. So the boom does like the operator behind the machine. When we start to get up in here, you start to fight the hose. So we strongly recommend that you stay in the back behind the machine, back here where that boom swings and follows you very well. So you'll notice you get a little drip and drizzle out of it. You shut the wand handle off, you'll get less of that. All right, so now I'm going to show you the shutdown. Before we do that, I'm going to show you, this is, see how we have a nice 4-inch overband, it's scored off nice, the crack is sealed nice. That's ultimately what we're looking for, is to keep that moisture out and have a nice crack sealed band. We do have a various different wand shoes available, you know, if you like a shoe or a disc or whatever. So the shutdown's very easy. We're going to go through that right now. We're going to come over here. I'm going to shut my agitator off because we're going to shut her down for the night. I'm going to put my pump in neutral. I'm going to turn my burner off, turn my wand off. You see the little flame symbols go out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my valve back up into recirculate. And I'm going to push and hold reverse until the pump turns on. And I'm going to let that pump spin for about a minute, half a minute. Not long. All we're doing now is sucking out that plumbing and evacuating the pump. You do have to have the trigger pulled to get that to turn. Actually, in reverse, you do not, just in forward. After a minute or so, you can put your pump in neutral, turn our engine off, we'll hang our wand up, and then we're done for the day. Make sure that you slam your boom so that it latches, and make sure you pin it. The hose is very expensive, thousands of dollars to replace the hose. So we don't want to drag that on the ground going to and from the job. And we also want to try to prevent kinks in the hose. So make sure that you're using the pins, and make sure that you try not to kink it when you're operating it. Once you get your pins latched, there's a couple here on the wand handle. Make sure you close your latches. Make sure your latch is closed. And then the last thing to make sure that you do, flip your boom latch over. That locks that, so that if you forget to lock the front, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to just show you one more really good example of a really nice, well-poured crack. You'll see right here. See how you've got a nice band? You can hardly even see the crack in there anymore. We've sealed that water out from preventing that damage. I'd like to thank you for making your purchase of the Stepp Manufacturing Ojk125. We hope to continue to do business with you over the years, and you've got one of the most technically advanced crack sealing kettles in the industry, built for years and years of service. Again, we thank you, and we hope to see you soon.